I want to ask you, I want to talk to you about, because this has been another huge benefit of my life that I have recently started doing, and I call it setting my segmented emotional intentions all throughout the day. Now, for me, guys, this was a massive, massive breakthrough, and I want to talk to you and get your advice and opinion on this. So, many times, have you guys ever been going to a meeting, or you going to a podcast, or you go to an event, and sometimes you'll say, hey, what I want out of this, what I kind of want the outcome to be, and sometimes you'll say, well, I want to go on this podcast and I want to add value, or I want to go to help this person, and I want to make sure that we can get them to this certain point. And we kind of set what we want as the outcome or the goal, especially if you're a CEO, because you tend to naturally be a driver, more of an alpha. Eddie's more of a beta, but that's a different story. But through the process, a lot of the alphas in the room, we kind of predetermine, like, okay, we want this end goal. Ryan, sticking in the front row, you've bought companies before, right? And sometimes as we go to make a purchase, if we're not careful, we will predict exactly, like, okay, I'm gonna have this meeting, I'm gonna buy this company, I'm gonna buy for X, Y, Z, or whatever, and we set it and we just go get that right there. And that was part of like my chessboard. Until one day, again, in my office, I was going through this kind of process and journey. Someone came in and talked to me right after you, actually, about setting my emotional intention. So if you can, talk a little bit about that, and I'll kind of explain how I do it as well. But
sure.
What does it mean when someone says emotional intentions?
Well, first of all, we need to understand when we say emotion, what we're talking about is feelings, right? And those are in the subconscious. It's really what we're saying is vibrations. So if somebody says they feel sad, what they're saying is I'm consciously aware that I'm in a low vibration. If you feel all excited, what you're saying is I'm in a high vibration. Well, vibration sets up attraction, which is another thing that people think is ethereal. The law of attraction. It should be called the law of magnetism. And human beings are electromagnetic. So when you learn how to set your vibration, whether it's going for a run in the morning, meditation, I call it mental and physical priming before you attack the world. So the world's either going to attack you or you're going to prepare for it and go into things with emotional intention. That's really what that is. And there's a million different things you can do to set that intention. Being aware is number one. Most people don't have a solid morning routine, but I promise you, people like Jeff Bezos, solid routine. It's physical, it's mental. Like they are bending the universe to their will, right? They're using their consciousness to create something out of nothing. So when you talk about that, it's just another way to say you're aware of vibrations and setting your vibration for the day, and then going into something in a high vibration.
So for me, as we were going through this, what I started to do was I use the word segmented because when I try to say, sometimes we'll say, oh, I want this year 2022 to be a joyful year. It's like, bro, you set the goal so far down the road that it's almost impossible to ever get. And if you're almost setting yourself up for failure as well, because if you get to the point at the end of 2022, after 365 days, and you're like, oh man, that wasn't a joyful year, your whole year was freaking like screwed at that point because you didn't create this joyful year. And then I even went to like a day, like, okay, I want a day to be an exciteful day. And I couldn't even get through a day because as an entrepreneur, it's like we daily get kicked in the teeth all the time of bad news, negative news. And it's like, even in the morning, and if I set my intentions to be this, I couldn't even get, to lunchtime and I was off killed. And so I broke it down and said, I'm gonna do segmented emotional intentions. And before I go into anything, before I went into this interview process right here, I took just a brief moment and I set my emotional intentions, meaning I asked myself the question, and this is a big, big game changer for me. I asked myself the question, how do I want to feel at the end of this? Now, normally what happens is, again, this is where, as an alpha type of CEO that we all are, you're like, that's a weirdo question of how do I want to feel? And I'm not disagreeing with you. I feel the same way. However, it has helped me immensely in my life.
Well, I mean, it's not weird. It's only weird to people that aren't aware of vibration.
Yeah, so really it's
not at all.
You're the weirdo. It's not me. I mean, that's what he's saying.
I mean, you guys should all feel weird, right? You're operating at the fraction of the 1%. When you look around, most of what you're doing shouldn't make sense, except in this room, to your friends, neighbors, especially your family. So, but we say things like it's weird. It's not weird. You're just aware.
Yeah.
It makes total sense when you understand the mind-body connection and energy flow the physics of it.
And so one of the things I do is when I go back to the question of, I set how I want to feel, not what I want the outcome to be. So a lot of times maybe I would go on a podcast with a lot of you guys. I'm like, hey, I want to make sure, again, the word that we use a lot is I want to make sure we add value to this podcast, meaning to the viewers. Well, that's an outcome. And I'm trying, and those moments you're trying to set an outcome to someone else that you actually don't know will ever happen or not. How will you ever know if on a podcast, on this moment of hour that me and you went through our podcast, if we were able to add value to some listener at some point in some time? And so what happens is you kind of set this standard or goal that you actually can't even know if you hit it or not. Which means if you think about that, throughout the whole day, you never really are feeling successful or fulfilled. And you never really get to feel that emotion that you're wanting to as an entrepreneur of, I'm successful, and which is just a feeling, right? Or a life of fulfillment, if you will. And so instead, if you stop trying to figure out how do I add value to this thing, or how do I help this thing make a difference, whatever it may be, if you change it and say, what's my emotional intention, means how do I want to feel after this podcast? And now it has to be a feeling. And it's amazing what took place when I would be with someone, and I'm going to give you a little piece here. When I went home at the end of the day, I was with Nick. I don't think Nick is here yet. I'm going to have Nick talk in a second. When I would go home at the end of the day, us as entrepreneurs, think about this for a second. We may leave the day at a level 10 of who we are as a person. But sometimes when we come home, and it's been a long day, which they all are, and we put those crazy hours in, we bring home to our partner a 2. You left with the 10, and you gave the 10 to everybody else. But you came home with a 2. Now I want you to think about this. The whole reason that the majority of us in this room are even in business is because we really got into it, is because you want to make a difference in your family. You want to make a difference in what your partner, your parents, your children, what they get to do, what they get to experience. You want to make the memories, and we're willing to go push hard, live this weirdo, if you will, life that's out there, and take massive risks so we can spend more time with our family. But yet every day on a daily basis, we reject and ignore the thing that we actually are seeking in life. Because we're hyper-focused on, well, once I get here to a certain point, then I will do this. How many of you have ever said before, like, once I make $1 million, I'm then going to give X to this thing over here, whatever this thing is over here. And if you ever notice in life, when you're like us in this room, when you get to $1 million, what takes place?
Exactly.
The goalpost moves.
Yeah.
That freaking goalpost moves again. And it's like, well, I mean, of course, $1 million, but $1 million is nothing nowadays, right? But really what we got to talk about is 10 million. And when I got a 10, you know what? Well, I mean, $1 million a month is the real answer. Once I get $1 million a month, then I will be able to. And so what happens is, through this process, instead of going down that path and forsaking the thing we're actually wanting, when I set my emotional intentions, when I go home, anytime I go to anything, this right here, but when I go home, as this story, before I get home, as I'm driving home, there's a street that I turn on, that I make sure I'm not on my phone anymore. I turn the music off in my car. I'm no more texting and driving, super safe. And I just take it's maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And I just, as I'm driving home, think through, hey, my partner's at my house right now, that's waiting for me to get home. Make sure you understand this. I don't say, how do I want to make her feel? I actually ask the question, how do I want to feel? Which is unique, because normally I was like, okay, what can I do for her when I get home? How can I make her feel special? But instead I actually ask the question, how do I want to feel? And it's the craziest freaking thing that takes place. Because if I say I want to feel connected with my partner, when I programmed that right there, I want to feel connected. It's amazing when I go home. When I get home, 2 or 3 minutes later, subconsciously I've now set my intentions to feel connected. Therefore, before the night's over, 9 out of 10 times, guess how me and my partner are? Connected. Because it's like what I programmed in that segment to be. Talk a little bit about what I'm talking about so that they don't think I'm
so on
crazy
point.
one up here.
You're not. Well, it's funny because you keep using the word crazy, so you're still rejecting the idea a little bit.
No, I'm not there.
It's not crazy at all. It actually makes you're starting from spirit, is what you're telling me, and you're setting the intention spiritually of what you want to express and manifest physically. That's how the universe works. Everything goes from thought to thing. So when you go home saying, how can I make her feel better? Well, number one, you can't. She's her own consciousness.
You can't do that, yeah.
But when you focus on your vibration, well, energy right? Builds and attracts. So it makes total sense. It's a brilliant thing to do, and it's a brilliant thing to do not only there, but in between sales calls. Like have a little reset. I use a 5-minute meditation. It's musical. There's no words. It's quick. In between deals, in between what you're doing throughout the day, and just little things. People think you have to meditate for hours, and then when you say meditate, they think again ethereal. It's really you're calming your mind to tap into the infinite. Right? The infinite storehouse of information. All the information that ever is or ever was is omnipresent. It's here. It's our level of awareness we need to bring up. When you're talking about your subconscious and, I want 2022 to be joyous, your subconscious has no idea what that even means.
Yeah.
Or I want to build more wealth. Well, $10 more is more wealth. That's how your subconscious thinks. It doesn't have a sense of humor, and it doesn't know right from wrong. So if you say I want to have an exciting 2022, it doesn't know good from bad either. Right. You may get into a horrific car accident. That's what exciting is to the subconscious mind. It's a vibrational thing. So one tip I can give you guys when you're setting goals, 2 tips for 2022. Don't do it from your present level of awareness. If you're at 10 million, don't set 15. And it's not a money thing, by the way. It's just a human experience thing. There's limitless wealth out there. Wealth is everything, right? It's spirituality, it's connection, it's what we're doing here. Finances is a result usually. Income is a result of being wealthy. So if you want to get your company to $1 billion, you have to go to $1 billion and live it like you're doing. You visualize it, you spend time visualizing it. And the second thing is a lot of people get caught up in the how. Well, how am I going to go from 100 million to $1 billion? You don't need to know that either, because if you knew, you'd already be there. Make sense? If you knew, you'd already be there. So what you want to do, and this is what people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk do, they go to what people perceive as impossible, colonizing Mars. Because they understand that consciousness bends energy into matter. Focused attention and consciousness. You don't need to know how. You'll attract the people, places, things. You'll be in rooms like this just from holding that intention. And you're doing it moment by moment throughout the day, which is brilliant. Too many people are thinking about next week, next month, next year, instead of living what's right in front of me and being present. So the key, and one of the things I've learned, is to try and be present, or not to try, but to be present. Yoda said that, do or do not, there is no try. But you want to be present, right? And whatever it is you're doing here, you don't want to be texting people here, scattered all over the place. You're here for a reason. And when you leave here, you can go conduct business. So those are some of the things that I think would help, is to be, like you said, very intentional, very present. Use your calendars, be where you are, and set the intention or the vibration, like you were saying. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please, please, please comment, like, and share, and click on that subscribe button so you can get all of the wealth mindset videos from the Matrix Success Network. Thank you very much. Be well, and God bless.